Alright guys, so I hope you're having a good day. We're looking at adding and subtracting complex fractions. And let's look at this question here, okay? So what I want to do is I want to be able to combine these two things. But the key thing is, in order for me to add any fraction, like if I were to add 3/4 and 1/2 together, the key thing is the only way I can do this is if they have a common denominator. If they have a common denominator, that means I can add these two. Well, these don't. Therefore, I have to have them get a common denominator. So in this case, I would look at the denominator and say, hey, what goes into both these quantities? And that's, well, 4 would be the greatest common or least common denominator. So what can I get a 2 to? What do I have to do to 2 to make it 4? So I would have to multiply it by 2. Okay? And once I have that common denominator, in this case I have 3/4 plus 2/4, I can now combine them together to get 5/4. Okay, so let's start off simple. Looking at this question right here, I want to be able to combine these two fractions together. So I look at the denominator. That's always the first thing I look at is look at the denominator. Do they have a common denominator? Yes, they do have a common denominator. So because they have a common denominator, I know that the denominator will be 7x. Okay? Well, now what I want to do is I want to subtract the numerators. So I have 11 minus 4, which gets me 7 over 7x. So because 7 is in both in the numerator and denominator, I would end up with 1 over x. So let's look at something more complicated. Let's look at this. I'm looking at x plus 2 over 4x plus x over 3x squared plus 9x. Well, do they have a common denominator? No. So in order for me to be able to start finding out what the denominator will be, is I will have to factor out each of the denominators. 4x does not factor, so I'm fine with that. I know it's going to be x plus 2 over 4x. Okay? And then on the right side, I have what goes into both of those quantities is 3x. So I have 3x over x plus 3. So what I'm going to look at is, can I simplify anything? I have x plus 2 over 4x. Now x and 2 are being added together, and I have something being multiplied in the denominator, so I can't cancel anything. Now here, on this one, I have an x over an x. X is technically being multiplied by 1, so I can cancel out these two x's. Okay? So right now, I have 1 over 3 times x plus 3. And then I have x plus 2 over 4x. So, this is what I have. Is I have x plus 2 over 4x plus 1 over 3 times x plus 3. So, do they have a common denominator yet? No. So I have to make sure that they get a common denominator. So I got to look at each of the quantities and say, what do they need? Do they have a 4 in this denominator? That is no. So I'm going to have to give this a 4. And I'm also going to have to give this a 4 up in the numerator too. This has just an x being multiplied to 4. Do I just have an x being multiplied by the 4? No. So I'm going to have to give this a 4x. Okay? Now I look over here. Does this have a 3? No. So I'm going to have to give both of these a 3. And this has an x plus 3. So I'm going to have to give it an x plus 3 as well. So, now what I have to do is simplify the numerator, which means I'm going to have to perform numerical operations. So I know right now that I have a 3 times 4x and x plus 3 in the denominator. Okay? So now I got to multiply 3, and then x times x gets me x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. So I just distribute x plus 3 through x plus 2 plus 4x. So if I were to clean this up a little bit, I have 3x squared plus 15x plus 18 plus 4x in the numerator, which then becomes 3x squared plus 19x plus 18 over 12x times x plus 3. So now the next thing I would do is try to factor the numerator and try to simplify the fraction. Now I look at 3x squared plus 19x plus 18, and that's not factorable. So I can't factor this out, so this would be my final answer. Okay? So now let's look at another one. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. Do they have the same denominator? No. So I have to give it 1. So I have 2x, and then x plus 1, x minus 1, and then minus x plus 2, and then I have x plus 1, x plus 1. So step 2 is to find a common denominator. Now this has 1x plus 1, this has 2 of them, so I'm going to have to give this an x plus 1. Okay, and this has an x minus 1, so I'm going to have to give this an x minus 1. Okay, so now we want to simplify the numerator then. So what I'm going to do is just distribute the 2x through, so I get 2x squared plus 2x minus x times x gets me x squared minus 1x plus 2x minus 2 all over x plus 1 squared times x minus 1. Okay? So now let's move this minus sign through everything. So I'm going to change that to a plus, minus, plus, minus, plus. I distributed the minus sign all the way through the parentheses. So I end up with x squared plus 1x plus 2 over x plus 1 squared x minus 1. So what I want you guys to do for tomorrow is I want you guys to look at these 3 examples and try to do them, and we'll talk about them in class.